Okay, so before we move on to Vajra Statement 9 in Chapter 3, in the notes provided, there is this section. If you have the book, the physical book is on page 249. If you don't have the book, under the notes, somewhere in the middle of the notes of that section, there's an interesting quoting from Karma Chakme. Karma Chakme is an important Lama who was a Kamakagyu Lama, but he assisted one of the Nyingma Turtons, Turton Mingyo Dorje, to kind of retrieve the Therimas and to translate the Therimas into Tibetan. So Karma Chakme, an influential Lama, Sobish has a quote from him, but there it says, before that, it says, Jigten Sumgon does not accept that the vow is lost when one returns it in an uncorrupted form. He maintains that the Pratimoksha vows are imperceptible form. Since form is defined as capable of being damaged, the vows are undamaged as long as they are uncorrupted. Now, when one corrupts the training, but does not return it, then the mind still holds on to the idea, I possess the training. And since the mind is the principal factor, one does not really abandon the training. In this context, Karma Chakme tells an interesting story that mentions this particular teaching of Jigten Sumgon. So this is quoting Karma Chakme. Once a disciple, a full monk, went wrong when he, even though killing hens and pigs to sustain his male offspring, still kept his vessel of consecrated water fastened to his girdle and took water from it. And so apparently during Jigten Sumgon's time, there was one disciple, a fully ordained monk, but we don't know why, but something to do with somehow his son needed him to support his son. And as a result, he became like a butcher. So killing hens and pigs. But he still kept some kind of like water, blessed water from a bumpa. Therefore, all his fellow monks complained about him, criticized him. Then Jigten Sumgon said, don't complain about him. Even guarding one vow will be the cause for nirvana. And this is actually Vajra Statement 310. We'll look at that. Even if a full monk has completely lost all of his vows, he is still a, quote, full monk with damaged vows. According to Jigten Sumgon, he's still a full monk, but his vows are damaged. Whenever he commits an unchaste act and other impure conducts, a fault consisting of a transgression that is like newly losing the vow occurs. So Jigten Sumgon says, yes, of course. We're not saying, that he is not committing negative karma. He is. But the promise is still there. So unless he says, I give up on this promise, the promise to keep the vows is still there. Thus, the stream of faults consisting of transgression is only interrupted when the corpse of the vows has been surrendered. That is the intention. Therefore, as long as the corpse of the vows is not surrendered, One counts even those revered ones who have gone wrong among the revered ones. Karma Chakme furthermore illustrates this teaching with the story of the householder called Iron Leg. This householder criticized a monk who maintained fields and a family. And so there's another story of a monk, even though he became a monk, he's still living with his family, he's working on the fields. Since Iron Leg thought that this was a disgrace to the order, he made the monk abandon his robes. As a consequence, the householder, who used to have visions of Tara, lost that ability. After many prostrations and prayers, Tara returned to him and said, "Because you separated that person on the path who sought disciplined conduct from his garbs of ordination, you are now obstructed. If that person would not be separated from his garbs now, in his mind, he will still possess mindfulness for the pure life. But now he is without attentiveness toward virtue and who will be born in the hell realm. That evil obstructs you." And so he's saying, here in this story, the reason this is such a great evil is that Iron Leg has effectively dissuaded a person from following what little virtue still existed in his mind. That this small virtue, even if it is only a faint echo of his full ordination, has great significance, is taught in the Mahakaruna Sutra, which we will look at in the next statement. So the point here is, even when a monk or a nun or someone who has taken vows have broken their vows, as long as they have not broken it and followed up with saying, "Now I reject the promise that I made," as long as that has not happened, what we should do on the side, if we observe something like that, is not to go say to that person, "Okay, now you should leave." Because as long as he still feels that he has this burden of having made the promise, that is a redeeming factor that should be encouraged, that could lead to a full redemption, so to say. But in this case, it's just like, saying to the guy, "Hey, this is really disgraceful. You're still wearing the robes, but you're living with your family and you're tending the fields. This is really disgraceful. Here, give back the robes." Then now this person, completely don't even have the last break. I think an analogy would be something like, someone is driving dangerously. Yeah. And you see that this person is driving dangerously. And then you say, "Hey, why don't you take those brakes off? Why don't you cut the brakes if you're going to drive dangerously?" Then this person is completely without any possibility of braking, because the brakes have been cut. So the bigger point here is the Buddha gave these prescriptions and proscriptions. They are to serve as brakes. Unless we actively reject those brakes, even if the brakes have been damaged, they still have the power to offer some protection. Not as good as new, but there's still some. And do not underestimate that little protection. Statement 9. People claim that if a single transgression occurs, the outcome of the fault will be nothing but falling into the lower realms. One attains nirvana as the result of guarding a single vow. In general, if one does not separate from the pure thought that the Buddha is the teacher, the Dharma is the path, and the Sangha is the companions on the path, attainment of complete awakening is not far away. So that's good news. I think most of us, can say, yes, Buddha is the teacher, Dharma is the path, Sangha is the companions on the path. That means having the refuge vows, genuinely having the refuge vows. If we have that, attainment of complete enlightenment is not far away. If one attains awakening even by just that striving, why should one not attain Buddhahood if additionally one guards any single vow of the basic trainings? Texts such as the Karma Shataka teach that some monks with impaired training who had earlier been fully ordained in the time of Buddha Kashyapa, then at the time of our teacher Shakyamuni, attained the stages from Srin Emperor up to Arhat. This is because the Mahakaruna Sutra teaches, I predict that even those who have loosened the training in my teachings, who enter a beer tavern holding the hands of their children, will attain nirvana until the time of the last of 1,000 Buddhas. Mahakaruna is the Great Compassion Sutra. So there it says, even those, who have taken the vows and then deteriorated, the taking of the vows is not wasted. It will bear fruit in the future. What we see with Jiten Sumgon is really a dual, in the sense of balance, emphasis on the seriousness and the importance of understanding what the vows are, and to really cherish the vows and to protect the vows. But on the other hand, to also say, the vows are also very powerful and not so easily defeated. It's simultaneously. You have to take the vows seriously, understand how precious they are, how no matter what level of training, Hinayana, Vajrayana, Mahayana, it is to give up the 10 non-virtues without exception. But on the other hand, he is not like harsh. Oh, you have broken one vow, you'll go to the hell realms. But the reverse, even if you have broken all the vows, but as long as you keep that thought, I have taken the vows, and I'm not going to give up, even if I cannot, even if I cannot, because of my habits, keep them purely, I would not give up, this trust that if I really keep the vows, I'll be protected. As long as you still have that, he says, you have hope. Therefore, the great Lord Dragungpa wrote, I am very happy since one will attain nirvana even by guarding but a single vow in the excellent unmixed dharma of the Buddha, the training of abandoning faults and accomplishing qualities. Furthermore, it is very well known that within the Vinaya topics to be discussed, for the householder, there are the single practice, the practice of some and the practice of most vows. So here, in the Abhidhamma Kosha, when discussing this point, it clearly says, as a lay person, you can take just one of the 5 precepts, one vow, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5. So it's best if you take all 5. Practice of most vows, practice of some vows, or at least practice of one vow. Just as Larry reminded us last time, the story that I've told about Buddha saying to a butcher who got interested in the Buddha's teachings, and then feels like, I'm a butcher. How can I practice your teachings? Even though I like it, even though I'm attracted to it, isn't just hypocrisy. The Buddha, instead of saying, "Oh yeah, you're a hypocrite," no, the Buddha saying, "No, you can still practice. You can still practice." Then later, after a while, the Buddha says, how about now? You only do your butchering before noon. Then later, how about, you only do it every other day. Bit by bit, this person transforms. Often, in religion, I think across all religions, the emphasis seems to be, so easy for you to become impure. You could be the best person, and one mistake, now you are a sinner. Now you are evil, right? Don't you feel like that sometimes? Like it's so hard to be good. It's so easy to be bad, right? Here, Jiten Sumgön's attitude is surprisingly, even though it's so central to his teachings, the virtues and the non-virtues, he doesn't preach that, so to say, from a condemning position. Even when someone has broken all the vows, he said, hey, don't lose hope, as long as in your mind you feel this regret, like, oh my God, I've taken all these vows. I've taken the vow of celibacy. Now I'm back at home, taking care of family, taking care of land, hanging out with my wife, I think Jiten Sumgön will say, well, don't give up, Maybe next week you can come back. Maybe next month you can come back. Maybe next year you can come back. Don't give up, don't give up. I've seen, like some of my teachers, that I feel like, that supposed monk, like we all know, like there's some monkey business going on, Why don't you like tell him, you should you should return your vows now, and not like give us a bad name. It's very interesting, they don't say that, and it's because saying that would be like what Karma Chakme said, that story, Iron Leg telling this, hey, you're a disgrace to the order, so give back your vows and just forget about it. It says that is the real negative. So you can counsel someone whom you know have broken vows and say, this is really non-virtuous. Please, stop. But don't say, you should return your vows. You should give up. Don't. That is not skillful.
Could I, is this a bit like it's breaking the vow in this case of Iron Leg and so forth? It's breaking the vow of killing, but not in the literal sense. It's killing the hope, killing the ability
You can think of it that way.
So in the non-virtues are not necessarily literal, in that you can extrapolate to a different level of killing. I think we've mentioned this before: killing hope, killing
You
the
can, yeah.
ability.
I think you can, yeah, in a poetic sense, you can say that. But even without that, you can see, killing or not, the point is that these vows are there to protect you.
And we can't take away that protection.
Yeah, from other people, even if they have behaved badly.
Yeah.
Don't take that away from them. Don't condemn them. Don't take that away from them. Like, do it as if it's a punishment, right? Oh, you have disgraced us, now out. Yeah, you have disgraced us, yes. But please don't give up.
Dr. Lai?
Yes.
I have a few comments about this. First, when we take the vows,
yes,
we're committing ourselves to something which is virtually impossible to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
We are normal human beings with our faults and our problems and our habits. And yet we're taking a vow that is committing us to a course of action which is virtually perfect, that no one, the ordinary person, cannot achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, Jigten Sumgön's position is quite logical.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you take the vow, it's generating a lot of positive merit because of the intent.
Yes.
And the nature of this world is that we're going to fail to be perfect.
Yes.
So but the intent, as long as the intent is there, there's hope for confession, for purification.
Yes.
And as long as we're very mindful of what our faults really are.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Then that's really what I wanted to say. Because the vows are committing ourselves to, like, it's impossible to be a perfect person. How can we do it? We're going to fail. We're going to have our failings. But the intent to strive for these things still generates great merit.
Yes.
And there's still hope for it.
Exactly.
To do it. You are self-aware and you recognize your own faults.
And don't take away that from people.
Yes. The other thing about other people is so much of the action that generates karma is because of intent. And we are not really able to see the intent of the other person. The action can have an intent that we don't understand.
Yes.
And even a person who is acting in a way that looks like it's in violation, we do not know what purification or what other remorse they may have, or why they're in that situation. So it's not for us to judge.
Yes.
That a person should be excommunicated because of what we perceive as their behavior being wrong.
Right. Yeah, so there are institutional concerns, and then there's the deeper spiritual concerns. Jigten Sumgön is concerned with the spiritual dimension. The notes again from Rinjangma on 254. Even though faults such as a defeat has occurred. So technically, defeat is one of the four, the parajikas, the four very serious that results in being expelled from the order. Rinjangma says, even though faults such as a defeat has occurred, if one thinks, the person who has done that thinks, I reveal this fault to the completely perfected Buddha. as in confess, right? And if considering that his teaching is the source of all goodness, one is never separate from the mind that rejoices with delight in the Sangha that practices those teachings, one will attain nirvana by practicing just a few trainings without lapse, even though one is not able to practice all the trainings completely. Sometimes, I say, I will point, let me point this out here. Sometimes, our superficial understanding of Kyoba Rinpoche's emphasis might make you think that he is kind of a very harsh, like all the vows you have to keep, you have to give up all the non-virtues, blah blah blah, all of that. But actually, you can see how no, it's not that kind of, none of that harshness. Simultaneously emphasizing how important the vows, how important being perfect is, but at the same time, knowing that until we are Buddhas, we can, but never give up. So beautifully, I think the end of the notes, Sobish summarizes. It says, by practicing a single training, however. Now, okay, so hold on. Go up a little bit, right? So this statement, that even, this statement, even by training in, one attains nirvana as the result of guarding a single vow, right? Both commentaries, meaning the both early commentaries, point out that although one will definitely come into contact with the Buddha, this is not enough. That means if you have broken all the vows, as long as you even just keep one vow, and then over long periods of time, you will eventually meet a Buddha. This is not enough. In the end, it will indeed be necessary to train in all the disciplined conducts of abandoning evil and establishing virtue. But by practicing a single training, however, one will eventually be taught by a Buddha. One will eventually meet a Buddha. Even if you are capable of only practicing one of all the vows given. So by practicing a single training, however, one will eventually be taught by a Buddha. And it is not true that by failing to train in the other trainings now, one will never have a chance to attain nirvana. If that was the case, it's gone for all of us. So if we can practice one vow, we rejoice in our capacity to practice one. If we can do two, we rejoice in the two. 3, rejoice in the 3. 4, rejoice in the 4. The following statements, 10, 11, 12, 13, again, like here, it's like a very, you could say, kind of serious look at the vows. Like 10, it says, misdeed by rule and misdeed by nature, they are the same. What that's referring to is that there are these technical terms developed in the Vinaya, in the Abhidhammakosha, where it says, so for example, the 5 lay precepts, the lay vows, not killing, not stealing, not committing sexual misconduct, and not line. These 4 are called misdeed by nature. The 5th one, not taking intoxicants, is called misdeed by rule. Likewise for monks, clearly killing, stealing, those are misdeed by nature. Misdeed by rule would be, for example, the monk's sitting cloth, right, should not exceed 4 fingers size. Beyond the monk's size, should not exceed 4 fingers. That is called misdeed by rule. And so in these Abhidharma, in these Vinaya texts, they will say, so these are 2 different types of misdeed. Jigten Sumgön will say, no, they are same, equally, they are misdeeds. They are unskillful. They're equally unskillful. And then next statement, it says, people say, right, the Buddha gave these rules of training only to those who have the good fortune of becoming monks and nuns. And that training is doesn't apply to us. Jigten Sumgön said, no, it applies to us. It applies to everyone. Then the next one, it says, evil and transgression are different. Again, technical terms that have developed. Oh, this is a transgression. Oh, this is bad, evil. Jigten Sumgön said, actually, no. Those 2 refer to the same thing. Then, like 13, it says something like, since the rules that the Buddha gave depend on the situation, then sometimes in this situation, this is allowed. In that situation, that is not allowed. Buddha says, no. What is prescribed is always prescribed as virtuous. What is proscribed as non-virtue is always non-virtue. So these, right, this is what I mean by, if you read only these lines, these statements, you might feel like very tight. Honestly, you might feel like very tight. Oh, Jigten Sumgön's view is so tight. It's so difficult, Everything is negative. Everything is negative, But you see, the statements before this is the balance. It's saying, even if you can only keep one vow, oh, that is so wonderful. And even if you cannot keep any of the vows, but in your heart you say, I want to take these vows. Oh, so wonderful. And even if you see someone who has broken their vows, don't judge them and say, oh, you're bad. Now you should give back all your vows. You're a disgrace. But instead, you should encourage the person. Oh, this is, oh, at least you keep that intention, So may that intention grow stronger and stronger and stronger so that you can. So it's this beautiful balance, and not just beautiful as in like, superficially looks good, but beautiful in the deep sense, as in it's good, and therefore it's attractive, and therefore it's pleasant, and therefore it's, pleasing to the heart. We need to be clear about what the vows and what the precepts are, or the rationale behind that. Otherwise, we fall into this problem of relating to these as laws. If we relate to them as laws, we will all become lawyers. And what lawyers do is what? Work around, right? Try to swim around those tight spaces in between the letters to find a way out. Then our whole understanding of why these trainings are there is completely based on a wrong view. So it goes back to the very first statement of chapter 1. The Buddha taught both the fundamental nature of things and as well as how that fundamental nature plays out. How it plays out in a state of freedom from confusion and how it plays out in a state of under the power of confusion. And therefore, everything he taught is based on that. So with this understanding, we don't really need to ask, like, are Buddhists allowed to do this or to do that? Because that question, before we even get to answer that question, you have to see how that question then is sort of based on the understanding then that, maybe Buddha or God or someone can give a discount because I was doing it for the right reasons. Then we don't understand how these vows function. What these trainings are about. Then we don't understand even more deeply, more profoundly, we don't understand the nature of reality. There are no discounts. And then you might think, oh, there's no discounts because God or law of karma is stern, unforgiving. No, not because of that. There are no discounts because there's no need for discounts. It's like asking for gravity to give you a break. It doesn't work like that. You cannot change, how gravity works. But if you understand how gravity works, you can build planes that fly. How many tons is a plane, It can somehow defy gravity. Superficially, we say it's defying gravity. It's not defying gravity. It's understanding how gravity works. How mass, the nature of mass. And working with that, you can even get a ton. Something that weighs a ton to float in the air and move through air. Is that magic? No, it's not magic. It's not a special discount, that gravity gave planes. Likewise, later you'll see, Chicken Simgon also addresses this. It says, you might think that the Buddha is doing supernatural powers. You might think the Buddhas or the Bodhisattvas are defying the laws of nature, but they're not. They are like the engineer. They are like the architect. They are like the inventor that studied carefully how things work, and therefore work with the principles of how things work. And amazing things can happen when we work with how things work. Yeah. Any questions? So anyway, if not, just FYI, there is a retreat coming up hosted by Guatemala, Casa Tibet. It's a retreat on the Heart Sutra. It will be done in English. Well, I only speak English. And then will be interpreted, translated by Andres. It starts this Friday evening, the opening session. And then Saturday, very humane hours. I think we get done by 5, something like that. Well, Guatemala time. So for us on the East Coast, that means we start later in the day, even maybe 9 o'clock or something like that. Then we finish maybe 7. And then Sunday, we have until noonish or something like that. I don't remember the exact details. So if you want to register for this retreat and participate, go to Facebook or go search for Casa Tibet Guatemala and talk to Antonio. He is the boss. He is the registration boss. So Antonio, if you can give your contact on chat, I think not everyone knows. Can you type now in the chat how to contact you? Yeah. So like as I said, every center has different ways of doing things, registration, cost, and everything. So you need to find out from the local centers how they do it. Some centers take the approach of being more protective of their teachers. So Casa Tibet Guatemala, Casa Tibet Mexico takes that approach. Meaning then, it's quite clear, how much the registration is. Because then after that, whether people give dana or don't give dana to the teacher, they can ensure that the teacher don't go hungry. So Casa Tibet Guatemala, Mexico City, is more proactive in protecting the teachers. Then some place like Urban Dharma, we are more reckless, We just, want to be, organizationally, we want to be good guys. We want to look good. So we say, oh, just do whatever you can. And then we leave it to whatever people do for the teachers. Do or die, well, it's your karma, So, I try to explain to everyone every time, don't judge, like, oh, this place is, I have to give this much. Oh, that place I don't have to, If you're calculating like that, it's not going to work, Obviously, we all have limitations. Then sometimes, as much as we want to join something, sometimes the time doesn't fit. Sometimes, the cost doesn't fit. So we have to trust karma. Trust karma means, not like surrender, but like, have the right attitude. Rejoice in other people being able to do it. And then think, for myself, I will continue to accumulate the conditions, the merit, and the wisdom to be able to benefit more and more from these programs and teachings. So this weekend, it's a short Heart Sutra program. So if you're interested in joining, get in touch with Antonio. Then you can get all the details. Yeah. So, Tata.
Dedication?
Oh, your mind. Sometimes, I think we chant too much. So, yes, good reminder. So now we won't chant, but from your heart, dedicate this so that we don't waste. what we have accumulated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias, Dr. Lai.
Yes.